They sabotaged, disgraced, and underestimated her because she was black. Now she owns the $1 million company and their fate. Jess Roker never wanted to be the boss. The title came to her on a wet black night when a phone call shattered the air. Her parents were gone, lost in a twisted wreck on a rain-slick highway after a fashion gala in Milan. At 25, she was no longer just a designer at Rokers Fashion House. She was the owner of the most exclusive clothing and handbag brand in the country. Her parents had groomed her for the craft, not the business. She could sketch a gown in seconds, feel the fabric between her fingers, and know the supplier by touch. But contracts, numbers, and negotiations? Those were things her father had handled, supported by his inner circle, Sammy, June, and Marshall. They'd worked for the Rokers longer than Jess had been alive, and while they were polite enough, she'd always sensed the frost beneath the surface. They tolerated her, yes, but only because she was a Roker. Now, with her parents gone, Jess felt like a trespasser in her own company. She needed someone she could trust. Instantly, she thought of her childhood friend, Sarah. She recalled seeing Sarah at her parents' funeral, standing quietly off to the side, wearing a simple black dress and a look of deep respect. Sarah's mother, Irene, who had died of cancer 3 years prior, had been more than Jess's family's house manager. She'd been Jess's true caretaker, the one constant in a childhood spent in the shadow of her parents' success. Sarah had spent countless afternoons in the Roker mansion. She was always happy to go to work with Irene because it was a great escape from the shabbily furnished tiny one-bedroom they lived in. While Irene worked, Sarah would either be playing dress-up with Jess or sitting in Jess's father's office, pretending to work alongside him. While Jess doodled gowns in her notebook, Sarah leaned forward, absorbing every word about profit margins, overseas suppliers, and brand expansion. She had always been sharp, quick with numbers, and steady under pressure. Now, years later, Sarah had just earned her MBA from Howard University. The thought struck Jess like a jolt. I wonder if she's found a job yet. Sarah had not. She was struggling financially and didn't know how she was going to make ends meet. Her student loan repayments were about to start, and she had no money for rent, let alone bills. 2 phone calls later, Sarah was standing in the gleaming marble lobby of Rokers Fashion House. She was professional but warm, her hair styled neatly, her voice steady. She agreed to take on the role of managing the business side of the empire. Jess was relieved. She finally had someone she could trust. But her relief wasn't shared. Sammy, June, and Marshall saw Sarah's arrival as an insult, a threat. They'd given their lives to the Rokers. Now this young black woman with little to no experience was being invited into their inner sanctum. What could she possibly add to such a robust company they helped build? The lobby of Rokers Fashion House was all glass, chrome, and whispers. Sarah could feel the weight of eyes on her as she crossed the marble floor, the click of her heels echoing in the cavernous space. The wall behind the reception desk displayed the Roker crest, gold letters curling like the stitches on their signature handbags. A woman in black silk slid past, giving Sarah the kind of once-over that said, "You're not from here, are you?" Sarah kept her chin high. She had been here before, years ago as a child, tagging along with her mother, but never like this. This time, she wasn't a guest. She was here to work. Jess appeared from the elevator, a flash of champagne blonde hair and effortless elegance in a white pantsuit. Her hug was quick but genuine. "Sarah, you look amazing," Jess said, stepping back. "I can't tell you how happy I am you're here. The boardroom's ready. I want to introduce you to the team." Sarah already knew their names, Sammy, June, and Marshall, the Roker loyalists, loyal perhaps to her parents. To Jess, that was another story. When they entered the boardroom, the air shifted. Sammy was slouched in his chair, his tie loose, spinning a Mont Blanc pen between his fingers. Marshall, tall and gaunt, barely glanced up from his laptop. June was scrolling through her phone, her nails clicking against the glass screen. Jess gestured toward Sarah. "This is Sarah Williams. She'll be handling business operations moving forward." Sammy leaned back and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Business operations? Thought that's what we've been doing." "You have," Jess said evenly, "and I appreciate it. But Sarah's here to give us a new perspective and take some things off my plate." Marshall closed his laptop with a soft click. "New perspective," he repeated, as if tasting the words and finding them bitter. Sarah smiled politely, pretending not to notice the cold welcome. I'm excited to work with all of you, she said, her voice steady. Rokers is an incredible brand, and I'm here to help it grow. June set her phone down, her gaze sharp. Well, growth isn't just numbers. This is fashion. You can't run it like a grocery store in the hood. Sarah's smile didn't falter. Of course. And I think you'll find I understand more than just numbers. The silence that followed was thin and sharp, like the seam of a too-tight dress. Jess moved on quickly, outlining upcoming projects, but Sarah could feel the undercurrent in the room. The unspoken question in every glance, who does she think she is? By the end of the meeting, Sarah knew two things. One, Sammy, June, and Marshall weren't going to make this easy. Two, she'd been underestimated her whole life. This would be no different, and if they thought they could push her out, they were in for a surprise. Sarah's first week at Rokers was a blur of meetings, spreadsheets, and contracts. The pace didn't intimidate her. She thrived under pressure. By Friday, she'd already identified several leaks in the company's profits and spotted an opportunity to partner with a luxury accessories distributor in Paris. It was the kind of deal that could open Rokers to new markets without diluting the brand, a win in every column. She stayed late that night, finalizing the proposal, her desk lamp casting a pool of light over the contracts. Outside the office windows, the city glittered. She emailed the deal terms to the Paris contact, CCing Jess and Marshall for visibility. By Monday morning, she was ready to move forward. She entered the boardroom with her notes neatly organized, expecting a quick green light. Instead, Marshall's seat was empty. "Where's Marshall?" Sarah asked. Sammy smirked from his chair. "Oh, he's in Paris." Sarah blinked. "Paris? Since when?" "Left Saturday," June said casually, stirring her coffee. "Had some urgent business with our distributor there." Her pulse ticked up. "The same distributor I've been negotiating with?" June sipped her coffee without answering. Jess looked confused. "I didn't approve a trip," Sammy shrugged. "Marshall's been handling our international accounts for years. He probably thought it best to take it from here. No offense." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone even. "Funny. The contact in Paris told me this was the first time anyone from Rokers had reached out in over a year. Now suddenly there's an urgent trip?" June's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Coincidences happen. The meeting went on, but Sarah barely heard it. Her mind was already spinning. By lunch, she got her answer, an email from the Paris distributor. "Dear Ms. Williams, we appreciate your proposal, but we have decided to continue working with Mr. Marshall on this matter. Thank you for your time. No explanation, no negotiation, just a closed door." She stared at the screen for a long moment, the words burning into her vision. She knew exactly what had happened. Marshall had gone behind her back, claimed the deal as his own, and shut her out entirely. In any other job, she might have considered walking away. But this wasn't just any job. This was Rokers, and she wasn't about to let three bitter gatekeepers run her off. If they wanted a fight, she was more than ready to give them one. By the end of Sarah's second month, the tension in Rokers' boardroom could be cut with shears. Every idea she pitched was met with thin smiles and skeptical questions. Every win she secured mysteriously unraveled days later. The whispers started. Deals she'd supposedly mishandled, clients she'd offended, numbers she'd botched. None of it was true, but the rumors were relentless, and they were always delivered to Jess by the same three mouths. Jess held out for as long as she could. She defended Sarah in meetings, urged the others to give her time, reminded them of the changes already improving the company's bottom line. But the pressure mounted. Sammy, June, and Marshall cornered her in private, their voices low and urgent. "Jess, we're only thinking about the company," Sammy said. "She's making rookie mistakes," June added. "We can't afford this," Marshall concluded. By the time Jess sat across from Sarah in her office, she looked exhausted. "I don't want to do this," Jess began, "but I think it's best if we part ways." Sarah's heart sank. "You believe them?" Jess's eyes glistened. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Sarah didn't argue. She stood, nodded once, and walked out with her dignity intact. But as the elevator doors closed, Jess's chest ached with guilt. Months later, Jess stayed late at the office, determined to catch up on some filing her assistant had left for her. That's when she found the envelope that her parents' attorney had given her at the reading of their will. She was too grief-stricken to read it, so she put it in her desk drawer for safekeeping. She took a deep breath as she opened the envelope, yellowed with age, tucked deep inside a folder labeled Personal, CR. It was her mother's handwriting. Jess slid the letter free and began to read. Jess, if you are reading this, it means your father and I are gone, and there are things you must know. Her mother wrote of the night Philip confessed. The affair. Irene. The child. Sarah. The rage and humiliation Kathy felt, the quiet way she almost left, and the choice she made to stay. Philip had insisted they help Irene, not just with money, but with stability. Hiring her as the family house manager was his way of providing for the daughter he couldn't acknowledge publicly. Kathy agreed, not out of forgiveness, but to control the situation, to protect the family image. Jess's hands trembled. Sarah wasn't just the daughter of the woman who had raised her. She was her sister whom she had fired. As Jess was processing all that was revealed to her in that letter, she kept herself busy with work. Some days later, she sat at her desk, and an email popped into her inbox, an anonymous message with attachments. She opened the first file and froze. Screenshots, recordings, documents. Every single act of sabotage Sammy, June, and Marshall had committed against Sarah. Deals they'd reversed, lies they'd told, the deliberate smear campaign to turn Jess against her. She sat back in her chair, a cold rage settling over her. It took Jess 2 days to track Sarah down. She found her in a cramped apartment on the edge of the city, surrounded by stacks of unopened bills. Sarah opened the door, surprise flashing across her face. Jess? I have to tell you something, Jess said, stepping inside. Her voice shook. And I don't know how you're going to feel about it. They sat at the small kitchen table as Jess laid out everything. The letter, the truth about Philip and Irene, the sabotage at Rokers. She spoke until there was nothing left but the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. Sarah stared at her, emotions warring in her eyes. Shock, hurt, betrayal, and something else Jess couldn't quite name. So all those years, my mother brought me to your house. She was letting me be near my father without me knowing? Yes, Jess said softly. And I didn't know either. But I do now, and I want to make it right. Making it right meant more than an apology. Jess brought in lawyers. She rewrote the will her parents had left. When it was done, Sarah owned half of Rokers' fashion house and half the inheritance Philip had left behind. She went from not knowing how she was going to pay her bills to being a millionaire in a matter of days. The day Sarah walked back into the building, she wasn't just an employee. She was co-owner. Her first act was swift and decisive. She called a meeting in the boardroom. Sammy, June, and Marshall were waiting, their smugness still intact, until Sarah slid 3 folders across the table. Termination papers, she said. Effective immediately, Sammy sputtered. You can't. I can, Sarah cut in, her voice like steel. And I will. You've been poisoning this company for years. That ends today. As security escorted them out, Jess stood beside her, a quiet pride in her eyes. For the first time, Sarah felt the weight of the Roker name and knew she was strong enough to carry it. 1 year later, Roker's fashion house looked very different. The marble lobby was still there, the gold crest still gleaming on the wall, but there was a new energy, alive, purposeful. The air buzzed not with whispers and politics, but with creation. Young designers filled the workrooms, sketching bold ideas that challenged the industry. Jess and Sarah stood together on the rooftop garden Jess had commissioned, a space for the staff to breathe, to think, to be inspired. The city skyline stretched before them, and below, the hum of the showroom's grand reopening echoed upward. Sarah wore a sleek navy dress, her hair catching the last rays of the setting sun. Jess, in a black dress of her own design, lifted her champagne glass. To new beginnings, Jess said. Sarah clinked her glass against hers. And to family, the real kind. Since becoming co-owner, Sarah had pushed the brand to expand into sustainable materials and mentorship programs for young designers from underrepresented backgrounds. The changes drew praise from fashion critics and attracted a new generation of loyal customers. Sales were up, so was morale. Sometimes Jess would catch herself thinking about her parents, about the secrets they'd kept and the mistakes they'd made. But she no longer felt trapped by them. With Sarah by her side, she was building something better. As they turned to head back inside, Sarah paused, looking over the edge of the roof at the street below where the giant Rokers billboard gleamed. Never thought I'd see my name up there, she said quietly. Jess smiled. Get used to it. It's ours now. Inside, the music swelled, cameras flashed, and the crowd parted for the two women who now ran one of the most prestigious fashion houses in the world. Side by side, sisters and partners, they walked into their future, ready to defend it from anyone who dared try to tear it down again.